Welcome back to the Flyers Nitty Gritty Podcast, getting gritty with it with your hosts, Jareev Wallach and Jamie Bascal. Jamie, welcome back, my friend.
Oh, man, you know what? It's an honor to be back, and it's a great pleasure to be in front of our viewership. I'm going to tell you something, man. This show is going to be top-notch. We have Ryan Magic Marker. Yes, the guy is a magician on skates. This dude just razzles and dazzles in between defenders. Dude, he does spinoramas in front of the goaltenders. It goes top shelf for Mama hides the cookies. Everything. The Buffalo Sabres, announcer would be going nuts if he was attending one of these games at the FPHL. And Ryan, where can our guests, introduce yourself to our viewers, man? They're chomping at the bit getting to know
you. My name's Ryan Marker. Last year I started out the season playing for the Delaware Thunder in the Federal Prospects Hockey League, and that's where I started. And then midway through the year, I got traded to the Watertown Wolves, and that's pretty much where I was last year. I'm a forward, and the thing I like to do the most on the ice is put the puck in the net and obviously do whatever I can to help my teammates be better players. And it was obviously at the end of the day, every one of our goals is to excel and make it to the NHL. That's obviously everyone's, that's where everyone wants to be. So that's pretty much, that's pretty much where I'm at right now. That's what I'm hoping to get to eventually, just taking it step by step.
It's a hell of an answer. I love that answer. That's a hockey player answer.
Yep.
But you know what? I like what you said within there. And, I think it's obviously kind of, I don't want to call it like a generic, right? But it's a common thing said amongst NHL players. You want to make the players around you better, right? Because you recognize without the players around you competing and, being the best they can be, how are you going to be the best that you can be, right? How are you going to excel at the next level?
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, if you don't have the right teammates that are, that you're gelling with or have the right chemistry, nothing's going to work. It doesn't matter how high skilled of a player you are. Obviously, it all comes down to hard work, and us as individuals, have to learn that before we come into the season, everyone has to put in the work and work hard, because if you're letting yourself down when you come into the season, if you're not like ready to go, you're just letting everyone else down too at the same time. So everyone has to be prepared. And when you have teammates that are all willing to work and all go for that common goal, which is obviously to win the championship or, excel to the next level, that's the biggest that's the biggest problem. People obviously have to put in the work for that.
Yeah. And you got to compete with a lot of people, got to put in that work as well, right? So you even know that going in, that other people like you, right, who tend to be more competitive, hungrier, they're going to have a similar mentality. And I bet that sits in the back of your mind as well.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's obviously there's hundreds of players, maybe even thousands of players out there that, have the mentality that I have. You just, you have to do something on the ice or whatever sport you play. It doesn't matter. Whatever you do in life, you have to do something that's going to separate yourself from the pack so you can stick out over others. Because honestly, when you get to this level, like, you're like looking at the littlest things that'll change someone's answer on whether they want you or not. And, it could be anything. It could be your skating. It could be your defensive play. It could be anything. And because obviously at this level, everyone can shoot the puck. Everyone can pass. Everyone can do pretty much anything that you could do. And it's just, it just comes down to the little things at that point. And that's honestly what I'm working on now. I'm just working on the little things.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jamie, please.
You know what? You got everything down to a science there, because what I heard in the messages between your correspondence between you and your reef was that those are words of a leader. And that's what a lot of teams are looking for in the ECHL, the SPHL, the FPHL, that part of a leader. Not only can you produce, which you finished third in points with 76 in the league, for the FPHL. You're rookie of the year for the FPHL, but you were first in goals with 42. But the thing that I take away the most is that you're a solid leader on and off the ice from my times of knowing you when you used to play for the Delaware Thunder. I'm watching you, getting to know you, and going to the rink. watching the games and stuff, the way you care about the game, the way you care about your family, the way you care about your team. Like, I mean, it wasn't an easy first season for the Delaware Thunder. I mean, they were just, it was a first season. So you typically, first seasons turn out to not be, like the seasons that they once going in to win a championship. Yes, but they're not easy seasons because everybody's getting chemistry down, gelling. But like you guys just rocked, man, and it really, those words speak high in volumes with me.
Oh yeah, and for sure. And I obviously didn't finish out the season with the Delaware Thunder, but I have nothing but great things to say about the ownership of the Delaware Thunder, all the players I played with there. I mean, they were some of them are still my best friends to this day. Like I love all of them guys. Obviously, hockey takes you in different routes sometimes, and that's just the way life goes in general. Like it could be with anything. It could be friends, teammates. Sometimes things just, I'm not going to say that they don't work out, but sometimes you have to take a different route than others do. And that's honestly what happened. I would have no problem ever going to play for Charlie Penn's, who owns the Delaware Thunder. And he's also the head coach also. Like he was a great guy the whole time I was there. Mm-hmm. And even when I left, like when my team played Delaware Thunder, like he was nothing but respectful to me. Before the game, after the game, it was great seeing that. Because I'm not going to say I didn't know, but you never know what to expect. You know what I mean? Like I didn't know like how he was going to be.
Yeah, and that's a big thing. Like you speak of your friendships. Brandon Contrado, who is well known in the hockey world. I mean, the chemistry that you two, it's just crazy. You made him a better player. He made you a good player. I was just so amazed watching you two, develop your relationship, on and off the ice. I mean, it wasn't easy for you to get moved to the Watertown Wolves. 11 goals and 10 assists and 21 points in 12 games played, Reef. When you know what I'm talking about when you move team to teams and stuff. Sometimes players, it takes them time, but it didn't take the magic marker much time at all to find himself at home there, man.
No, and yeah, it was definitely rough. Because obviously me and Brandon Contrado, we had a really good chemistry, and not only that, like we're pretty much best friends too, like off the ice. So it was definitely tough. Obviously, he ended up having to move on too. He went to a different team, and we don't obviously see each other as much, these days. But obviously, we keep in contact, and never know. Maybe one day we'll end up crossing paths again and being on the same team. You never know.
It's so interesting. I'm sorry just to hear that. I don't want to interrupt completely, but I just put in perspective, right? We hear all these Flyers stories about players getting traded right around the league and just what happens, and you're telling the story, right, about kind of what you're going through. Mm-hmm. It's not that different, right? It's really not that different from what they feel and like that disconnect, right? And you see that just the level of teamwork when you work with people and kind of commit together and buy in and find success as well. And we've all had it. We've all had it with different things, right? You said it earlier, right? It's not just hockey. It's consistent in your life where you kind of follow these patterns, hardest work ethic, the success, the teamwork. You look for these people throughout your life. Like you say, you hope you can cross paths again, right? And I just find that so relatable.
Yeah, because I remember, I'll never forget it, when I was in the Delaware Thunder locker room, like after the whole trade happened, I was in there and I was getting all my stuff together, obviously, to get ready to go to Watertown. And I was saying to myself the whole time, like before, like a couple days before when the trade got finalized, I was like, I'm not going to let it bother me, mentally. I'll be fine. But once I went into that locker room and like I actually like took my stuff out and then like looked back and like I was like, wow, this might be the last time I'm in this locker room. Like it actually was upsetting because it was like in that like quick moment, like that's where you remember like all the memories that you had with like all the teammates that were there. And like I said, I had a lot of really close friends on that team because last year I played on the Danville Dashers and we had probably 8 of us or maybe 8 to 9 of us just from that team that were on the Delaware Thunder. So I was very familiar with everybody.
Yeah, that is quite a unique point. And, have spent time in the SPHL with the Evansville Thunderbolts. You amassed, 1 assist in 4 games played, and and then of course, you were on a loan from the Danville Dashers. That's correct, right, Ryan?
Yeah, that was correct. That was that was definitely a rough time to get called up. I'll tell you that, because so it was I got called up, and maybe a game or two before I got called up, I never really told anyone this. I actually tore I had like a torn muscle in my groin, and I never said anything. I kind of just played through it, but I knew it. But when I got called up, I was technically I wasn't playing at 100% when I was with Evansville, and after the 4 games, that's what caused me to have to go home and then obviously rehab it and stuff like that, because like I never actually told anyone that, but that's what happened.
That's such a bummer.
Yeah, it's like I got called up, and the last thing on my mind was, I was like, if I tell them I'm hurt, they're not going to want me to come. They'll tell me, and they'll figure something out. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to try it anyway, and I tried my best, but yeah, I am.
So
it got
what
to
do
the
you?
point. What's up?
I'm sorry. No, it's okay. I was just wondering, like, what do you tell yourself in that mindset, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like what, like after that happens, you kind of hit another level. Like, how do you get yourself back up? Because the following year, you kind of kicked ass again, right? And then you did it again, right? You're like, what do you tell yourself mentally?
Well, what I told myself at the time, I was like, everything will be fine. Just go through with it, and then, play your best. But then realistically, after everything happened, I went back and looked at it, and I was like, you know what? I probably should have just been honest from the start, just let it rehab. Instead of keep playing through it and getting worse, I might as well have just sat out for a few weeks and then continued to have a good season with Danville Dashers. And then the following season, it could have opened up a door for me. But now, I was a little bit thick-headed at the time. And I said, you know what, I'm just going to play through it. And that was definitely not the right option. I definitely shouldn't have done that. But then I came home, and it pretty much ended my season last year. So after that, my whole mindset, once everything healed up, was to get in the gym and be as healthy as I can for this past season that just happened, and play as good as I can, and I'll get the same opportunities the following year, during the year.
Love that.
That's absolutely amazing. To play hurt and still put a point on the board in 4 games, it's not easy to just go in and just, like we were talking about, trades and just, okay, here, let's go on a loan, and then you're put, and you already know that this may be a once-in-a-lifetime shot, and look, you're calling again this past year, and you just, like your Reef said, you kicked ass, like, once again. It was like you kicked butt for Newman University when you played for them. It's like everywhere you go, there's just success like riddled. You had 8 goals and 3 assists for 11 points, 5 games played for Newman University. A few years ago, right?
Yeah. So what happened with that was it's funny. I was actually there in Newman University at the time playing inline hockey, and I wasn't even going to play ice hockey because, like, at that time, like, my mind kind of really wasn't on the ice. But then their coach used to coach me when I was younger, and he was like, you know what, Rye, why don't you just try to come out and play ice hockey? We have like 7 games left or something like that. I was like, you know what, I'll come out and play. And that's kind of how that happened.
Awesome.
And I played well there too.
That's awesome, because you know what, at the end of the day, your goal is to get to the ECHL, hopefully with the Reading Royals or somewhere near close. Mark, you are just too good to be in the FPHL. And I think, like, a lot of your teammates say the same thing. And there's a big person. There is a big person that says the same thing, because it's because of your game. PK, PP, the power play, two-way game is there. And it's a big guy by the name of Matthew Goudreau, who is a good friend of yours, who happens to be Johnny Hockey's brother. Speaks very highly of you at the time when I attended a game for the Reading Royals in the press box in December. He watched you. He said you were killing it. He said he's just got to get here. He's got to get here.
Yeah, and I've been very good friends with Gaudreau family since I was a kid. Their father coached me since I was
wow.
since I was 6 years old, all the way up till probably 16. So
Does it?
10. What's up?
No, I'm sorry. Finish what you're saying. I'm sorry.
No. So yeah, I played with Matthew Gaudreau, Johnny Gaudreau's younger brother. We were always a year younger than we're a year younger than Johnny. So his father used to coach the 1993 age group team, and he also had a 1994 age group team too. So we were always like really close together, both teams, because wherever we went for tournaments, he would always take the other team. So like we always played at the same time. So I grew up playing with Johnny Gaudreau, watching Johnny Gaudreau, and man, that kid was just something special from day one. And everyone always, said he'll never make it because of his size. He obviously is very small. Like I'll never forget the one year when we all went to Atlantic District tryouts, and that was it was like a district team to go to. I think it was like we were young. It was like 14 or 15 years old, and we were all trying out for the Atlantic District team to go play in this tournament in maybe Detroit, and it was playing against like all like the different regions. So like all like the best regions were putting their teams together, and I remember Johnny Gaudreau didn't make the team, and we were all like, how did that happen? And it was due to like they thought his size and stuff, which is crazy because the kid led the league in points every year. It's nuts.
Yeah.
It was more of like a politic thing, but that kid's been dealing with some crazy adversity his whole life, and to see him obviously, making noise, tons of noise in the NHL it's great to see. He deserves it.
It's amazing. That's an awesome story. Could you see that from the family, like when and obviously I'm making a little bit of assumptions, but I assume the father and maybe the mother as well had a lot to do with kind of how the athletes, obviously they're both high competing athletes, right? Even his younger brother, and then to obviously produce a kid who by character fights adversity, also is kind of born with a skill set, plus clearly a work ethic, at least a drive. Do you think like his parents played a large role in that? Was it just the overall community? Like, how does that happen? The combination.
Oh yeah, absolutely. His father was huge in not even just his. I mean, clearly, obviously his life, but he was huge in all of our lives. Like if I went down the list of the guys that Guy Gaudreau has brought up, like from kids to where they play now, the list is just insane. I mean, you're talking obviously his two kids alone, and then you're talking Buddy Robinson, who is a part of Calgary Flames organization, Eric Robinson, his younger brother, who plays for the Columbus Blue Jackets. Coach Guy Gaudreau, well, Mr. Gaudreau, he produced all them players. He produced, like, we have this skate in the summer with like 20 of us, and we all play some type of pro level, and all of us at one time were coached by his father. So he really helped us all become better players at the end of the day, for sure.
And you know what, Matt went on to have a really good season for the Reading Royals himself too. And it was crazy because I remember being at a Delaware Thunder game in the press box, and because you guys were always busy with interacting with the fans, and I know you love the fans very much, and they love you, and I'm sure Watertown fans love you as well. And the Thunder Pack, they just supported you guys like nonstop and whatnot. But it was crazy because after a few hours, after you meet and greet the fans, sign some autographs, including my nephews who happened to be there and turned out to like love you. They were like, "Oh, he should be called up to the Flyers. There's no reason he shouldn't be with the Flyers." I mean, listen, the ride home, the whole hour, I was like, "Man, will you guys just calm down?" A second. It doesn't go like that. But like, where I'm getting at is at that particular game, it was like late October, early November, somewhere around there. Matthew Gaudreau got called up to the Stockton Heat, and you were the one that tipped me off to that. Do you remember that, Ryan?
Yeah, I remember.
I mean, that was like the call up of a lifetime, right? I mean,
he should be in the AHL, though. I mean, to be honest, like personally, obviously not just because I know him. Like, it's just the work that I see him put in the summer, and I personally think that he's an AHL level player, and I don't see any reason why he can't stick up there. I mean, I guess it's like the same situation as me. You know what I mean? It's just got to wait for the right time.
Yeah, and don't worry about it because your time is coming. The Reading Royals will listen. They, we're going to feature this with the Reading Royals. We're going to do our best, to get your name out there because your name should be out there. And Delaware Thunder fans know what I'm talking about. Dude, you're the magic man. And you're pulling stuff out of your hat, man. Tell the viewers a little bit about the Delaware Thunder Pack.
The Delaware Thunder Pack, I'll never forget it from the first game on to the last game that I played there. They were unbelievable from the start, and I honestly, out of every organization that I've seen so far in this league, the Delaware Thunder Pack was probably the best group of fans that I've seen so far. Like when it came to like supporting their team, like the way that they support their players, their team, like it's unmatched. And after every game, they were always out there waiting, had great conversations with tons of them. And one thing I'll never forget is, and I still have it to this day. After one of my games, when I think we were playing Elmira, and I had my first hat trick of the season. A guy who was in the U.S. military signed his hat and actually gave it to me and said, like, you deserve this. I think he was, I forget what war he was in. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but he gave this to me and he was like, I didn't get to throw it over, but I'll hand this to you personally since you got a hat trick. And that just sticks with me because obviously they're the people that mean the most in this world, the people that, fight for their lives, to give us freedom. And they're the people that I really have to tip my hat off to. And because I've had tons of family members that obviously served in the military, and without them, we wouldn't be anything.
That's awesome, man.
Respect. Great story.
Yeah, that's something I'll never forget. That's one of the biggest memories I'll have especially with the Thunder Pack, because he was a part of it.
Right. And I remember also being at one game, and it was the darkest game for me. It was in December. It was the game of Oscar Lindblom, where Oscar was diagnosed that night with Ewing sarcoma. And I remember you and Aaron Taylor and Brandon Contrado like hitting the ice, and like you guys were just overcome with like some type of emotion yourself from hearing the news of Oscar. And then following the game, I know those interviews weren't very easy, especially with me in particular. And hats off to you for that. You were like a champ, because I know that hit home with you because you love the Flyers too, right?
Oh yeah, Flyers have been my favorite team, since I liked hockey.
How did you play through that game?
It was definitely rough. I mean, because you never want to hear anything like that. Like that's just so tragic to hear, especially for not even just like a young person, but just like, I know someone who like works as hard as he did. Like, I mean, I know a few people that know him and said that like the work that he puts in the off season and just like everything that he does is like, it's just unmatched. Like he works every day to get better, and to hear something so tragic like that happen, like, it hits you hard whether you know him personally or not, because I know just from how hard I work, I mean, I could only imagine, hitting a bump in the road like that. I mean, it would just be I don't know how I would be able to deal with that mentally. I mean, obviously I hope nothing for the best, and I hope he has a speedy recovery and we see him back on the ice for the Flyers as soon as possible.
Yeah, and that's why I asked you that question earlier, Ryan, right? Because that's a little bit of where my mindset, not just that particular case, right? But we see a lot of these, right? Even with somebody like Sam Morin, right? Who's had 2 ACL tears in a row, right? As he finally gets into the NHL, he gets another setback and another setback. And it's like, I know Oscar's situation is probably the worst that we've seen in a very long time, at least here in the Phillies, and the kind of mindset that he has to go through to fight back, right? To not even just just to think about his life, right? Which is, let's be honest, that's everybody's first thought at this point. It's just that he's safe, right? And then to go beyond that, and then to fight to make it into the toughest and highest level of hockey back, right? Because potentially he has to start from scratch a little bit, right? At least physically, he's gonna have to rebuild. He's gonna have to be in the gym extra. It would take time.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to take him some time. Obviously, he's not going to come back and just be the same player that he was. It's going to take hard work. It's going to take dedicate. Just like you said, he's probably going to have to not fully start from the bottom, but like pretty much. Like if you think about it, like even from like a mental standpoint, a physical standpoint, just like it's going to be definitely a hard road for him, and it's something that I would never want to wish someone to have to go through, because it's definitely going to be hard. And Samuel Morin, I got lucky to be able to skate with him in a tournament last summer, and he was a great guy, and it looked like he was actually doing really well, looked really healthy, and of course, he's just dealing with some very unlucky things in his career, and I feel very bad for him.
But it's unbelievable that you guys are able to put aside what is going on, because you're human beings too, and sometimes we forget that, and it's just unbelievable you guys are able to put your emotions aside and play at such a high level. And because I think that night at Lindblom, I think you potted 2 goals, and I know that wasn't an easy night, but it's just unbelievable what you athletes are able to do, and what they're expected to do.
No, exactly. That's like whatchamacallit, what's his name? Like, I'll never forget, like, how many years ago was it? Maybe like 2 years ago, Isaiah Thomas, when his sister passed away, like maybe like the morning before a game that he had to play, and he stuck through and like played through the game. Like that takes a crazy mentality to be able to put all that stuff aside to be able to play that game. And that's just, I don't know if I would ever even be able to do that.
That was a playoff game too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was.
That's crazy. Yeah, I remember that. I do remember that.
And it's kind of in the background a lot of times, right? And I think this is what's great about hearing this from you, Ryan, is that truly I think it gets lost a little bit, right? Like, even you have fans, and obviously I think your fans care about you. They're probably the more dedicated ones, right? Because you're not in the NHL. But, I think we forget this about athletes, like everything that actually goes through to battle to make it through, the fact that everybody you're competing with is an ultra competitor as well. Like, even talking about Lindblom, right? Like, he will fight to come back. If he can, he will. I don't doubt that majority of athletes will, right? It's in their nature. It's like, that is the world you guys live in. But you're still dealing with the human side of it as well, right? And I think it's forgotten a lot of times. I think we forget about it. And the one thing we know about somebody like Morin, or even Lindblom, or even yourself, right, where you had one down year, it's the big picture that is important to focus on, right? It doesn't have to be this season, right? It doesn't have to be this game and this week, right? You have a life to live. You have ups and downs to go, and like you said, you'll be back. You will have another opportunity. And honestly, from everything I've heard about you personally, just from my buddies, is that you're a gym rat, that you're consistently in the gym, that you've been up to about 240. At one point it says you're listed as 6'1". So just to put that in perspective for people, that is a pretty thick man on skates. So you want to battle for space. I mean, that stuff matters. Size matters, strength matters, right? You're putting in the work because long term matters, right? And
yeah,
there's a lot of shit that happens in life.
Oh, for sure. Like, I mean, if you want me to get like really technical, like 5 years ago, I was actually up to 320 pounds.
Holy moly.
320 pounds, and
that's crazy.
And this morning, I usually weigh myself every Monday, and this morning I weighed myself. I was 191. So, like, I obviously dropped a ton of weight, and the whole reason why I dropped a ton of weight like that is because at one point, like, I wasn't like really like playing hockey like too seriously. Like, obviously I'm 320 pounds. Like, my conditioning and my level of play didn't matter to me too much. So I was playing like this men's league hockey game, and I was playing against I can't remember his name. Some guy who was playing like minor league pro at the time, and he saw me play, and he was like, he was like, man, like you have all the talent in the world. If you lost just like a little bit of weight and really, got yourself in the good condition and took it serious, he was like, the sky would be the limit for you. And since that day is when I got myself a trainer, and I've been grinding it out ever since then, and that's where I'm at now.
Love that.
And it had nothing to do with your fiance Emily, huh?
No. Wait. No. She had a very big. Like, what do you mean? Like, of the reason why I lost the weight? You're saying?
Yeah. No, just in general, like you feel much better about yourself and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously,
Yeah.
she helped me through everything too. Like she's always supportive through anything I do, and I obviously that's why I love her so much, and I can't thank her enough for always being there for me. And we get married in July. It was supposed to be at the end of May, but it ended up getting pushed back due to the virus. So now we're getting married July 19th. And
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's definitely a day I'm excited for, because obviously she deserves it.
Gee, you know what? Seeing her at the games and stuff, I've gotten to get to know her a little bit. You guys are like the perfect couple, and it's always great, and it makes you comfortable. I'm sure it makes you comforting on the ice when you're playing to know that you have your rock, behind you and support you so much. Again, that shows where your heart lies. You're a leader.
Yeah, it's crazy from like the start, from like when we started dating 8 years ago. Like she couldn't have told you anything about hockey. Like she knew nothing, and now she knows the game just as good as me. You know what I mean? So like she knows, like she's
dedication.
Like, yeah, like if I asked her right now, like who was top 5 in the NHL in points this year, she would probably know 4 of the 5. That's just like how much she knows about the game, and it's great. It's great how she follows it and how she knows everything now. She's just anything, like even besides hockey, like
you're growing the sport.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
That is awesome.
And I love that story overall, man. I gotta say, I hear a message of encouragement within there. I hear positivity from your fiance, obviously, and we talk about it all the time on this podcast. And how important that is. We live in a very cynical city. We live in a very cynical world. We jump on our athletes. We want to throw them away a lot of times when they're broken. But we see how important words of encouragement are, right? It completely transformed your hockey career from one positive statement, from the right voice. And it's like, that's the type of impact fans can have too, that we can have, even your viewers, like all the stories you hear about the hat, like what it does to the motivation inside.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have been able to do any of this either, obviously, without my parents, my brother, my whole family. And not only that, like one very important piece is, honestly, maybe even the biggest piece is my trainer. His name's Frankie Bo, we call him. That's like his nickname. We call him Bo. And he's a great guy. He's honestly like another brother to me. I've been training with him for the last 5 years, and one thing I'll never forget him saying was, like, before this process, he was like, obviously, the one line that he always said is, I'm only as good as my student, meaning, like, obviously, like, I could train you as much as I want, I could train you as good as I want, but if you're not going to put the work in and, like, eat the right stuff, like, I can't change,
Yeah,
I can't change you, like, without you putting the work in, pretty much. And that's one thing I'll never forget. And then I'll never forget the first thing that he told me was, because obviously, like, when you first start like a journey losing weight, like you take like a before picture and an after picture. And he was like, Rye, he was like, you're gonna hate yourself for doing it, but he was like, I'm telling you, you're going to want to take a before picture, because you're going to want to go back and look and be like, wow, that's how I actually was. And that's one thing I never listened to him, because I was like, obviously embarrassed with myself. I didn't want to take a picture at the time. Now, after all this, everything that I've done, I wish I would have taken that picture. It was like, it would have just been great to look back at and been like, wow, like, look at the transformation that I did.
That's awesome.
Love that.
Awesome.
It's a huge focus.
Yeah.
quick before you got to run, Ryan, because Urifa and I know that you got a jet here shortly. Who's your favorite Flyer?
Do you want me to go by a Flyer, or do you want me to go even deeper to say who my favorite hockey player is? Was that
do both?
Okay, well, my so this is crazy. Flyers are my favorite team, and my favorite player on the Flyers, I would have to say probably right now, is Travis Konecny.
Yeah.
Great
And
answer.
and this is going to sound crazy, but since he came into the league in 2005, my favorite hockey player is Sidney Crosby.
I knew you were going to say that.
My
I could just
fa-
tell.
I absolutely love that guy. I love everything about his game, and like just everything that he does. I love it. And
Ain't it the truth? We all hate it. Every Flyers fan, but we know it. We know exactly what he is. He's a machine.
I mean, yeah. Obviously, you gotta obviously
Respect.
not like him when you're playing against him. But if he was on the Flyers, we would love him.
We'd be
You know what I mean?
obsessed with him. This whole city would be in love with him.
Yeah,
It'd be a
absolutely.
statue of him. I completely agree.
Oh, for sure.
And, we didn't ask you who your favorite boxer was yet.
Oh, my favorite boxer. That's a sport that I follow. I wouldn't say I follow it as much as probably about the same. My favorite boxer, probably Manny Pacquiao.
It's a pretty good answer,
Nice.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll tell you.
All and furious. Just like
Yeah,
DK.
Yeah, I love Manny Pacquiao. I let alone his skill, like just everything that he does for his country, for all the charities, like everything that he does for the Philippines. It takes a certain human being to really be able to do what he does, and that's another reason why I love him, other than just his boxing skill.
Ain't that the truth? That's a great way to end on that note. Nice. Well, thank you, Ryan. I really appreciate you joining us.
Thank you so much,
Obviously,
Ryan.
we're going to tell people to follow you, track your career, and thank you for giving us insights on the hockey career. Jamie sound us off here as well.
I mean, the magic marker, you heard him himself. I mean, look for him. I'm telling everybody, look for him to play in the ECHL this year, whether it's with the Reading Royals, whether it's with the Barracudas, whether it's with somewhere in the ECHL. I'm telling you, this guy is a good player. He doesn't put up points just for nothing. He doesn't just care about care about his family. He's a leader on the ice. He doesn't just do all this for nothing. Ryan, where can everybody find you at?
You could obviously find me on Facebook under, my name, Ryan Marker, and then on Instagram, same thing. It's real easy to find me. Everything's pretty much my first and last name, or if you're having trouble, it'd probably be like Ryan Marker 16. Twitter's the same thing. And I just want to say thank you to all the fans, that have been supporting me from day one, and obviously, and I'm hoping new fans that are listening. I hope you enjoyed this podcast, and I'm looking to be back on here eventually. Again, thank you so much.
Awesome. We'll definitely have you back, Ryan. Absolutely.
Definitely, anytime.
Thanks a lot, Ryan. Thank you so
You
much.
got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so we just finished with Ryan Marker. That was a great interview. I think an emotional roller coaster to some degree, which I don't think we expected, but we got a lot of good information about Ryan and what an athlete goes through. And again, he's not an NHL player, he's not an AHL player, but again, this is a high competitive athlete. This is a guy who touched young juniors at a young age, again, competed. You heard the names he was throwing around. That was a pretty great story. I thought we got some really good insights there, Jamie. Don't you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Anytime you could get into the head of what an athlete is going through, I think it was a really good interview. And Ryan gave us some really good answers. You could tell, like, the emotion. You could hear it in his voice, the emotions when he was 320 pounds. And then he just got words of encouragement, from a person, who was watching him play the sport of hockey and said, yo, you really got a future here, and stuff like that. Like, that really goes a long way for an athlete. And where we're getting at is, like, Nolan Patrick's case, for instance. Like, some people, and I'm not saying there are a lot of them, but some people are calling him a bust. You saw it on Friday with the injury updates and stuff like that. Well, I think words of encouragement could go a long way for Nolan Patrick, and I think that's what Ryan was trying to say, is that we shouldn't just give up on anybody. Everybody has a future, whether it's doing hockey, whether it's, stocking the shelves, whether it's driving cars, whether it's, being a nurse, being a radiologist technician, with all this stuff that's going on right now, because there is not one bad job throughout the entire world right now, to include, the United States, all the essential employees, what they're doing. Words of encouragement goes a long way. And
huge.
Like, he was like almost down in the dumps, so to speak, physically, and look, one word of encouragement, and look where he's at now. Now he's playing at a high level. He's an elite player in the FPHL league. He should be in the ECHL sooner rather than later, and hopefully that's next season with the Royals or somewhere. Royals, I'm telling you, if you guys are hearing it, this guy is a leader. I mean, it was just a phenomenal way, to bring on our first guest for our podcast. And what a better way than to get an honest, Ryan Marker, to where he's getting words of encouragement from the fans, from the Delaware Thunder and the Watertown fans, and it's because he is true. He's an athlete. They're human beings. He's a true person after the game. People see him for who he is. He is a good person, a quality person, and a hell of an athlete. And all they need is words of encouragement. Nobody's broken. And I heard you use that phrase a little bit in this podcast, and I know where you were getting at in terms of Ghost, being, some people were saying he's broke.
We can go down the list of players that have been picked on over the years that were claimed broken before they were broken, or bust before they were a bust, or that they should be traded with a bag of pucks. Or that one quite often.
Scott Lawton was a perfect bust. You remember that? How many people were saying, "Oh, we should trade him, and he shouldn't be here"? You remember that back in the day? Nobody.
No, I will say this. I think people always liked Scott Lawton. I think a lot of people were just disappointed from his output. But I think people, this is what I really take from Ryan's story, and obviously we said it on the podcast too with him. It's a long journey. It's not a 2-year journey just because you're interested in hockey for that year or two. Maybe you're impatient, and I understand that people like to jump to, and timing is a big issue with winning championships, and things have to come together, right? So I understand that. I understand the pressure, but the disregard of talent or work ethic or a player's potential, just because you're not seeing the results right in front of you, or maybe that player needs some refinement or some words of encouragement, or maybe it needs to fail. Sometimes that has to happen. Sometimes you're maybe have too big of a head and you have to get knocked on your ass a little bit, right? And get reset. Like, there's all kinds of reasons, but in life, it's about kind of striving through that, right? And I think it was very appropriate. And I think Ryan's conversation today was really appropriate, right? Because of the injuries, we have stories obviously with Lindblom, with Patrick. We have the hate on Ghost throughout the year, right? Where people kind of losing interest. But we even heard Ryan talk about himself, right? He had an opportunity, came back too early. Did Ghost do that this year? I don't know. I'm completely guessing. But I'm saying these are the games that athletes play in their heads, because they're fighting to stay alive. And by the way, they're customers are standing over them, watching them compete, right? Making sure they're perfect. And when they're not, they're screamed at to get fired or removed or traded or sat or benched or punished, right? And I get it. I understand it, but it's not reality. It's just not reality. If you were an employee somewhere, you would not progress under those conditions. So why would you expect an athlete to? They are a human being. The idea is to allow them to blossom. And Jamie, real quick, I'll let you chime in, but I'll go back to an article I wrote for Philly Sports Network, obviously where we met, where we started. And I wrote an article about positivity, and this was around the time where the Eagles won the Super Bowl, and then you saw the Sixers and the Flyers both go on long win streaks, and everybody was chanting, "We're champions." The entire city felt great about itself. The teams were just winning. Obviously not the only factor, but we saw a contribution to the teams themselves. There is an element of positivity that we cannot fully quantify. Stop looking for it in statistics. You know inherently that it is effective. It is why you talk positive to your friends when they're down. You understand the mental battle. So that's all we say. Obviously, criticize how you need to criticize. Judge how you need to judge. And it's okay to be harsh and have high expectations for performers. And there are people out there who criticize and do it the right way. So I'm not tackling everybody. But, we see it go overboard. I mean, we're on the message boards, everybody else, and we see it. We see the jump to it. And obviously, you're free to say whatever you want. And if you're our listeners, we love you regardless. But this is just how we feel. We feel that we want to contribute to the solution. And that's how I see it. I want to contribute to the solution.
Perfect example of that. Jake Voracek. What a great year he had this past year. I mean, honestly, he played the best two-way game of his career, in my opinion. Not saying he didn't have a two-way game before, but you looked at him. He looked more motivated for his two-way game. But, I was in a conversation on Twitter in December, and one person, this is when, Jake had, he was on, a 8 or 9 game, scoring streak, point streak, I should say, and he was just tearing it up, assist after assist. And he had, one goal and, 8 assists or something like that, somewhere around that nature in a span of, 9 games or so. And one person said, well, where's his goals? And I said, I don't understand. You were talking merely about production. And I said, he is producing, and I just don't understand. And that was around the road trip. That's right. Because the core, when people refer to the core, it's Cooch, G, Voracek right now, of the core. And I was like, we did not, well, not we, but they did not lose on the road trip because of the lack of production from the core, because the core produced over a point per game in some cases. Mm-hmm. And Jake was one of those players. And this person was like, well, where's the goals? And I said, so whatever fits your narrative is right. You merely said production before, but since there is proof that he's producing, now where's the goals? Jake has never been known as a goal scorer. He's been known as a point producer. And yes. That's what he has to be, as an effective point producer. Why? Because if you play on a line with Jake, he is an effective player, an effective offensive machine. He'll get you the puck. Just put the right people with him. You'll freaking get the back of the net with him more often than not. That's for sure. The dude is an elite passer in this game. I just don't know what more this guy can do. He really carried the team this year in some cases.
Yeah.
And in some cases, he could go down and be in the top 3 for Flyers MVP this year. That's how good he was this year, in my opinion.
I think he had a really strong second half, right? And shout out to my little player profile videos. But, to your point that you were saying earlier, Jamie, people say he's not scoring. Jake Voracek puts up 20 goals a year every year, literally every year. Go watch the profile video. Go look at his statistics. 20 goals every year, regardless of the up and downs, regardless how much you complain or think he's playing great. 20 goals every year. Again, I had 1 year of 30, not in the NHL. That's it.
He was en route to his 4th straight 60-point season. He was en route to that.
And it's debatable, and I think we both would agree with this, that if we would have started the season playing under AV, already ready to go under the new system, so maybe potentially next season, he would have put up more. The entire team would have put up more points, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Without. And he did mention that. He was very honest with me in an interview, and it was around November, mid-November, end of November, somewhere around there. I was in the locker room after practice, one of the practices, and he was very honest. He said for the first 10 or 15 games, he was like, I will admit, I was not my best. He was like, I don't know. He didn't blame the new coaching staff. He was like, I just don't know why. He's like, for whatever reason, I just wasn't at my best. He was like, but then I got out of that funk and just, honestly, he was like, honestly, I've been playing well. I don't know why, some people.
I remember that.
Are saying that I'm not playing well. That was like a quote unquote. It's just, that's where, this goes, is like words of encouragement goes a long way to athletes, because at the end of the day, these gentlemen, these women who are athletes, they are human beings at the end of the day, and it's just so easy for us to flick the switch off. Like Marker mentioned, playing, in the game, where Oscar Lindblom was diagnosed, with Ewing's sarcoma, and he was overcome with emotion, and like you have to try to put that emotion aside, and he didn't even know him personally, but it has still affected him in some type of way. Why? Because he's an individual like us. He's like you, me. He's like our great viewers, who listen to us and follow us and stuff. It's very hard. And I think that's one of the reasons why the Flyers went 1-4 on that road trip, because that was the time where Oscar Lindblom was just diagnosed, and they went 1-4. And look what happened when they came back and saw Oscar Lindblom, gave him hugs and stuff. They went on a tear, for a little bit, and it was, so.
And the coach talked about that specifically. I remember that.
Athletes are human beings, and sometimes we forget that, and sometimes even I forget that. In some cases.
What's the whole point of the locker room conversation? I mean, yeah, a lot of it is yelling at each other, but it's almost a reaffirmation of what you are, right? You watch those speeches. I mean, Jake Voracek's a good example. You can watch. We got to see some glimpses of Jake talking to his team every now and then. I mean, obviously he's not the most polite guy, but that does not matter. I mean, what he's saying to them, he's reaffirming. They know the process. You know what you're doing, right? A lot of times the coach is going to tell you you're not doing what you already know. You know better this. You are better than this, right? It's a lot of message that's kind of rewarded. It's not that saying, oh, you're perfect for making mistakes and whatever. Don't worry. Everything's going to be okay. That's not what they're saying. What they're saying is you're not playing your best, but you have more. Dig deeper, right? And that's how you get more out of people. It's okay to recognize reality. Right, and that's kind of what that player was telling Ryan, right? That he was referring to. He was saying, hey, look, like I recognize the skill, but like I also recognize that you're abusing your body, or maybe just ignoring your body, maybe not even abusing it. Just you're not taking it, you're not taking advantage of your gift, and it's a little bit of harsh criticism, but it's actually positive, right? Like he probably didn't feel great to hear that. At first, he probably was like, well, like that's a little bit of a shocker, but then. Because he's the type of person he is, the next day to turn it on and reverse it. Again, these are athletes. Regardless whether you're on their side or not, they're going to fight to come back. They're going to fight to win. So you can either help them or you can either be against them or with them. You can make that call. You're free to make it. You have the freedom, and you're a fan regardless in my book. And I truly believe that. You're a fan regardless of where you stand on that issue. But I make the case, don't you want to be part of the solution? I want to be part of the solution. I don't want to be part of the problem. Part of the problem would be helping my competition. I don't want to do that, right? I can't. And I think being shitty to our own team helps our competition. Booing Andrew McDonald at the home opener helps our competition. It gives their team fuel to talk shit on our players. Why? Why would we can criticize them ourselves in public or in private, but to do it respectfully, not the way we do it. Sometimes we go too far. I do think generally, I do think the average Philadelphia Flyers fan is great. I will say that. But we're just talking about kind of the outliers here. And we're in a weird time, right, with not a lot going on. There's room for this right now. There's room to start picking players apart, start tearing stuff. Luckily, we ended on a high note for once, right, Jamie? But I think we just positivity, right? Positivity.
Up until Friday, up until I started seeing some Nolan Patrick bus comments and stuff like on Twitter and stuff, and regardless of, let's take away if he comes back or not. At the end of the day, he is rehabbing. He is rehabbing from a migraine disorder. He is classified as being hurt. So if a player is hurt, why are we wishing ill will on that player when we should be giving him the same grace that we're giving Oscar Lindblom? Like we're prayers for Oscar Lindblom, but people. And I'm not saying there's a lot of people, but some people are hating on Nolan Patrick for whatever reason, and he's hurt and he can't do nothing about it. But yet his Twitter is activated and he's seeing all these comments and everything else. What is that doing to his psyche? And like I just don't understand it. We should be with him. We should be with him all the way, regardless if he produces, regardless if he comes back, regardless if when he comes back and kills it. Regardless
like
of
that.
all
When
at the end, yes, a big win because he will come back and kill it.
I believe
But
that
I'm
as
just
well.
saying, at the end of the day, he's a human being. We don't want to see him hurt. And we didn't even mention, prayers for Colby Cave and his family.
Oh, right.
Really
Tragedy.
sorry about that. That's a heck of a thing. I will say Edmonton did a lot for Oscar Lindblom. When Oscar Lindblom was diagnosed and they had they were trying to raise money, trying to get him into the All-Star game even. They put a shout to their fans, and I got the tweet to prove it if people don't believe me. Edmonton put a shout to their fans, please vote Oscar Lindblom into the game, All-Star game, and stuff. So for all that they did for the Flyers organization and Oscar Lindblom, the least we can do is give prayers and thoughts to Colby Cave and keep Edmonton, the Edmonton Oilers organization and, our thoughts and prayers too. And, to include, Nolan Patrick needs some thoughts and prayers, at this time. Oscar Lindblom needs thoughts and prayers. JVR, Nate Thompson, all that, who's, rehabbing and stuff, need thoughts and prayers. But it's just.
I hear you, man.
I
think it's just
many. It's not many. It really isn't many.
Well, I think it's just our mindset, and again, I think we're just preaching this because, and we brought Ryan on not for that. That just happened naturally, right? We had questions for Ryan. He is who he is. He answered everything, the way he wants to. But it aligns with stuff that you and I talk about all the time, right? About why being positive is so important around these players. I'm not saying you got to give them false encouragement. You got to tell them they're great if you don't think so. I'm not saying you got to do that. But if you got to lay into them, why not just like back off a little bit, or just make like a minor, or just boo rather than saying the extra. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with booing, right? Sometimes the team needs to be booed. Sometimes they're not playing well. Like sometimes they need. That's like a team thing, right? You're booing the team, right? And it's a little bit different when you start picking people apart individually, or kind of, I don't know if banking in it. I don't think people are banking. I don't think they're basking. I think a lot of people, disheartenedly, I think they really truly believe a lot of the negative scenarios. But I think kind of what we wanted to throw your way too is that realize that there's a battle going on here, and it's not a short-term battle. It might seem that way to a lot of people, right? Like Nolan Patrick's 1 year out might seem like a huge amount of time for people, but quite frankly, I mean, he's got another 15 years left in his career here. He's just getting started, 15 plus maybe, potential in how good he is. Like, he's just getting started right now. I mean, we watched, again, Sidney Crosby. He'll come up again. He missed, majority of a season? It didn't come up that people thought he might be done. I'm pretty sure rule changes were put in place after that because they were so worried about Sidney Crosby. And look, came back and he still dominated, And I'm not saying that it's not serious, but just realize that some battles, they're not won in the near term, like the head injury that Patrick is going through and the recovery. And again, we can debate that update or lack of update, whatever that was. But for the most part, it doesn't mean the end of the world just because he's not healthy this year. I know it's what we all wanted. It would have been the better scenario, but we also didn't expect this to happen. So it's like, there are curveballs. It doesn't mean hockey will never be back just because we lost, potentially for the first time in a long time, a season without, at the very end, which I don't think has ever happened really. But correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think it's ever happened where they haven't been able to finish at this point. But looks like we're at that, But it doesn't mean hockey's done, It doesn't mean hockey's over, and it doesn't mean the NHL is going to go away. And even if world changes, which I don't really buy in all that whole thing, but even if the world does change, right, the NHL will adapt. They're not going to just give up. Oh, yeah, they're just going to sit back and just shut down the leagues. What are you, nuts? No, they're going to figure out ways to get through this. Humans do that. That's what we do. And they're competitive, and that's kind of the point, is perseverance. Positivity helps breed perseverance, right? And that's what we need from our athletes.
And in that case, we need to be proactive, not reactive in that case, because in this case, the NHL, and they didn't really have a plan because, honestly, this is something that was so unexpected who would have thought that the league was shut down to, a disease or some type of virus or something. I'll be honest, I never thought I would ever personally see that day ever that leagues would shut down because of that. But they're taking every precaution in terms of health, and we're praising all the health workers and, the essential employees and different things and stuff. So, I mean, they should get the same words of encouragement, thank you. We say thank you a lot to, the medical professionals who are doing a phenomenal job at trying to keep the public safe, now trying to get rid of this virus, the scientists who are trying to come up with solutions, vaccines to, combat this virus at this time. So these leagues could start coming back. The MLB, the NBA, the NHL, can reconvene with spectators and become the sports that we come back to the sports that we come to love. We give them a lot of thanks. Well, you know what, Nolan, thank you for all you do. Thank you for those, the 2 years that you're able to come on the ice and pot 26 goals. As it wasn't easy, during what could be injury-riddled seasons, for him, who was just recovering from a sports hernia surgery, and stuff. And it wasn't very easy in his, rookie campaign, just coming off that sports hernia surgery. And then training in the off season and coming back, it just wasn't an easy, transition for him. And I just positive words of encouragement to come back and come back healthy. And same thing goes for, Oscar Lindblom. Hopefully Fletcher says his treatments are going well. Let's continue to pray that his, treatments are going well. And let's be honest, at the end of the day, the NHL is a business. And this business will not be out very, like Yarif was just talking about. They're not going to say, okay, well, next year a vaccine's going to come in, so then we could reconvene then. No, they're they're already thinking ahead right now in terms of next season, this season, trying to,
They're definitely considering all options. I mean, that's no doubt about that, right? They got to be thinking all options at this point. But
yeah.
Jamie, let's talk about something more positive before we end our set here. Let's talk about our last segment. And let's actually just talk about hockey for a little bit, and not so much about our, positivity stuff and, all the sappy stuff. But let's talk about what we were talking about earlier. Let's get down to the real brass tacks here. Mackenzie Blackwood is just not better than Carter Hart. I understand New Jersey. I get it. You're so used to Martin Brodeur. I get it. It's over. It's over, guys. It's over. He's on our team now, and now you're going to watch it happen to you. That's what's going to happen. I understand Mackenzie Blackwood. He's going to be a good goalie. He's still not Carter Hart, and enjoyed what we're going to do to you, which you had to do to us. I had to watch you take cups from us because of him. I am going to enjoy every moment of Carter Hart in net for the Flyers. And no Mackenzie Blackwood is going to ruin that.
You know what I'm going to love, Yarif, man? I'm going to love, playing the Devils, because they're almost starting to get back. Let's be honest. The Devils are going to be a good team here.
Eventually. Okay, yeah.
But the Flyers are going to be a better team. And why are they going to be a better team? Because you just mentioned it. Carter Hart. I can't wait for the day that Carter Hart just robs Nico Hischier, in the game clinching, playoff series, just robs him, with like 2 seconds left on the clock, and the Flyers win 3-2 to send the Flyers into the Stanley Cup final or something like that. I can't freaking wait for that day. And then Noel Patrick just is the first one to dart on the ice. Dude, that would be freaking awesome.
Hey,
to watch that happen.
I mean,
but
there's a lot of specialty there.
Carter Hart is a better goaltender. It wasn't even a question. I can't believe this person on Twitter said, I saw yesterday there was a tweet saying Mackenzie Blackwood was greater than Carter Hart.
I've seen it before.
Listen, you know what? Blackwood is, like you said, he's going to be a good goaltender.
He is already.
He is. It's going to be neat to have that rivalry back. But Carter Hart is a better goaltender, and he will always remain a better goaltender. We have Carter Hart. You know, Carter Hart, who's putting up better numbers than Carey Price in his rookie campaign, you know, at 21 years
At the same age, yes.
And
Yes.
Carey Price is a phenomenal goaltender. And to even think that Carter Hart could even sniff Carey Price's numbers and become better, I mean, I'm not saying he is going to be better than Carey Price, but, man, I just can't
If he
believe
hits that level, it's a humongous win for the
he already
Flyers.
did, so to speak. I mean, in his
Well,
rookie campaign. Now, he's got
I would say he's ahead of pace, right?
Yeah.
He's ahead of
just-
pace. He's ahead of pace.
Very encouraged, and that's what gives me a lot of encouragement. Is that because the goaltending position is the most unpredictable position to predict in the sport of hockey, and this is not an easy transition for a 21-year-old netminder. This just does not happen. That a 21-year-old just comes in and kicks
He's not
ass.
supposed to be here. Sorry. He's not supposed to be here. Anybody who's complaining about him, like, he's early anyway. So any complaints you have about him, you know.
He's got 2 years, like Mackenzie Blackwood, right?
The fact that he's featured, like, I had a random guy that lives in my neighborhood who's clearly not really a Flyers fan, but it was during the season. He's like, Carter Hart. How the heck do you even know you just got here? That should show you enough. He just got here, and he's already a big deal, and he's not supposed to be here. And I'm going to emphasize that nobody thought that he was going to be our starting goaltender when he showed up. We all were tempering expectations, right? Why? Yeah. Because normally this does not happen, and definitely not for the Flyers.
No. I mean, we've been waiting for this day since Kingdom Come, since Ron Hextall. Let's be honest. I mean, they have had some solid netminders, before that in terms of like Steve Mason, I think was underappreciated by a lot of, Flyers fans here Steve Mason was guilty of that soft goal, but he would make some really good saves in the same token, to keep the Flyers in it.
He definitely had some really high points here. It's just his problem is the same as most guys who are like a 1B, right? Kind of like Elliott is consistency. Like, are they able to be the best player regularly?
Right. But in his defense, he had always
1 year
goalie. He was always a platoon goalie. He was never given those reins.
I agree.
Hey, you're our guy.
And he didn't have a good team. He didn't have a great team in front of him.
Right.
Either,
So there's some factors there. But I mean, like I said, he was probably to me, in my opinion, the best goaltender since Ron Hextall, in my opinion.
Sure. Well, we had Van Beesbrook.
Roman Czechmonic was phenomenal. Has put up some really good numbers and stuff.
I believe we had Sergei Bobrovsky.
But that was when, like,
I know.
I'm getting back because that was when he was young, and we gave up on him for Ilya Brzezinski.
And again, for all those people who want to, we have too many centers. We have enough defensemen. We have enough goalies. Let's move a goal. Stop it. This is what happens when you go with that attitude. We have too much of goodness. Let's give it away. Let's not. Let's hold on to it. Look at all the good young goalies we have behind Carter Hart. I would hope that we plan on keeping them.
And we have a 6'8", 205-pound beast in Ivan Fedotov, who's putting up a 2.10 GAA in 32 games in the KHL, which is arguably the second toughest league in the world. And
he's had a very good year. He's had a very good year. Very big jump.
Have to, prove that next season. I think next season is going to be his calling, but
I think next year.
I'd be shocked if Kalnick doesn't sign an ELC. I wonder if Fletcher's thinking about ELCing, Ivan Fedotov, which that could happen.
Maybe Kalnick is waiting to see if he actually has a hockey season ahead of him at a university. So actually, this is actually kind of a good point. So I graduated from Temple University, obviously, and if anybody knows who I am, and we both did, obviously. But so I still. I have some contact with people I went to school there, and I just saw kind of a tweet from somebody still works for Temple. And he kind of pointed out a good thing that one of the universities, I can't remember off the top of my head, has already come up with plans for a 2021 start to their collegiate year. And I don't think that's going to be the case,
But if we're thinking in person here, and maybe they're going to do online classes or partially online, and you're an athlete and your goal is to play hockey, and you might not play hockey at college for the beginning, maybe that's kind of what he's waiting to see. Maybe Kalinuk's waiting to see, is college hockey even available this year for me to play, at least for the first half. Otherwise, maybe I am better off in the pros, where at the very least, they might pay to have me play anyway with nobody in the stands, where a university most likely would just shut down the university, right? And just not play any sports, right? It would be more like a school mandatory thing. So I don't know. That's a guess.
But that is a great point. But what shocked me was a few days ago when Jordan Kawagachi recommitted to the University of North Dakota. So yeah, but I mean, I know he's 5'9", but the dude could score. He's like a Mika Sear, type. But he could definitely find a professional contract, right now. And I could tell you, if he did not recommit, I wouldn't be so. I would not throw it away that the Flyers were interested in Jordan Kawagachi, and in trying to make a run.
I would talk, if I was Fletcher, I would talk to every prospect that I thought was good, whether I thought I could sign him or not. If I thought he was amazing by the end, I would just trade somebody and bring him in if I had to, if it was possible. I mean, I would agree with you. I would talk to everybody who I thought was interesting. Why wouldn't I?
Yeah.
Jamie, I think we got to wrap it up here, though. I think we're over an hour. So let's leave the people with a little goodbye. We're still waiting for our season. We don't know if the season's canceled at this point. Most likely it probably will be, but we don't know. Let's stay hopeful that maybe we'll get something out of this summer. If not, plenty to get excited about for next year. Hockey will be back. The world will not be ending. Everything will be okay. Positivity, all right, Jamie? The theme of the episode. Everything will be okay. And in the long run, remember, things have a way of balancing out. Things will get better. Even though they seem down now, they definitely will get better. Life gets better.
It's going to get better because you got getting gritty with it. Every single Tuesday morning when you wake up, Getting Gritty with It podcast will have a new episode. So that's something to get positive about, something to get hyped about. Take your shirts off, start dancing around, start doing cartwheels, and do the ball with the ball to bang, bang, dippy, dippy, dippies and the boogies, and hop, drop the boogies. Do all that stuff. Where to find us, flyersnittygritty.com, at Jamie Basco. Reef, you did a great job at hosting this week, man. Congratulations.
Oh, thanks, man. I feel good about it.
Dude, you did a great job, man. You're the aficionado.
You're the aficionado. All right, I'm not going to do that. It's incredibly cheesy. But, yeah, another great episode. Thank you. We will be back weekly. Obviously, we're not done talking about hockey. You see, we're going to actually our plan for next week is to bring on more local hockey, even though hockey is not happening. I mean, we have some interesting people to talk to and have some interesting conversations. You'll see Jamie and I will be going for more interviews as time goes on, as we get our stuff together, as we become a more official podcast. You guys can sign up now. On Spotify, on iTunes, we're available. We're available on YouTube. We're getting there. Eventually, we'll be slightly more professional, but for now, we're getting there. Jamie, love you, buddy, and see you next week. Love you guys. Listen back.